Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Megan, if you do not know. Today's video is another Cozy Chit Chat, which is a series I do where I just talk about things. Today I'm talking about exams. I'm going to first explain what Durham is doing about exams in quarantine. I'm going to explain what I think of what Durham's doing, and then I'm going to explain how I'm revising, which is going to be my secret tip because I know a lot of people been struggling. How do you revise for an online exam? So I'm going to show you. Yeah, let's just get started. Durham is doing online exams, and these work by the exam is released 48 hours prior to the time it would have originally been sat, and you have 48 hours to complete it. You're still only supposed to take the same amount of time, so if it's an hour-and-a-half exam, you should only take an hour-and-a-half to sit it, which I think is fair enough because even typing is much quicker than writing, so it makes sense. If you are a faster writer than typer, you can just provide proof that this is the case, and then you're allowed to give yourself extra time. Based on a Facebook post I saw, loads of people are not going to abide by the time limit. I did because A, I've got a terrible conscience and would never live with myself if I cheated at my degree, and B, I have a life and I don't want to spend 48 hours on an exam. That's ridiculous. And it may be the silliest choice you've ever heard, but I am just sticking to the time limit because those are the rules. It's an open book exam. Lots of people think that it means you're researching, adding references. It's the same as an assignment, but it's not in most cases unless specified otherwise. Oh, let me just clarify, all of this information is unless specified otherwise. It's not like an assignment in that way. They say open book as in if you forget a term and you just want to quickly look it up, then you can do that. So it's not like you should put as much research into it as you put into an assignment. You should prepare beforehand. You can have in-text references, which I sort of had in my exams anyway last year. Like, I memorize a few quotes and throw them in. So you can have in-text references, but you don't, unless specified otherwise, you don't need a reference list. Now, I've said a lot unless specified otherwise, so that's what I'm going to talk about now, because my French exam was actually very different. We only had an hour to do that. That was an oral exam. So it was released at 9 AM and we were given a recording of questions and we had to record our answers. And this recording should have been about 10 minutes, but we were given an hour to complete it. And that was not supposed to be open book. You were not supposed to look at anything. Obviously, different exams are different. Oh, in terms of word count, it's 1,500 words per hour of exam. So my exam the other day was an hour and a half, so I had to do 2,250 words. I did not reach that. Probably about 2,100. I would have never got that amount in an exam writing, don't think so, but that's the maximum word count. You can't go above it. I think you can go a bit under it. The reason they give you 48 hours is because if you can't find a suitable amount of time to sit the exam, you are allowed to break up the exam as long as you don't research in between the time. So I did question 1 in the time limit, and then I had a 10-minute break and then started question 2, but in the break I was just eating an ice lolly, not researching the topic. So you are allowed to spread it out. I know in my house I'd never get time to sit an hour-and-a-half exam and it'd be silent for that amount of time. Actually, when I did mine, when I got to the second question after my ice lolly break, everybody left the house because it just was not happening. And then finally, there's a no detriment policy, because first year in Durham is formative, which means it doesn't go towards your final grade. Don't think this applies for them. But for second and third years and fourth years, what they'll do at the end of your degree, when it comes to grading, they will calculate your final mark based on all the assessments and exams you did in your time at university, and they'll calculate that, so that's mark A, and then they'll calculate mark B, which is everything you did in university except quarantine affected exams, and so that's mark B, and they'll pick the highest out of mark A or mark B. If your results in quarantine bring your grade down, they won't take it into account. If they push your grade up, they'll use it. So you cannot ruin your mark that you would have got anyway, but you can push it up. So I think that's quite a good way of doing things. But you also have to pass. I think you have to pass to get through to the next year. And also for me, if I do study abroad, if it goes ahead, I'm supposed to have 56%. I don't think no detriment applies to that from what I've read, I think I still have to have 56%. So technically for me, no detriment doesn't really make a difference because I still need to get to year abroad if it goes ahead. Personally, I will always stand by, if it's serious enough to cancel GCSEs and A-levels, there is no reason why undergraduate examinations are still going ahead, I'll be honest. But obviously there would be uproar about that too if they cancelled them, so they've had to go with what makes the most people happy, and I do think it's good. We can't bring our grade down, but we can push it up. So I think with the no detriment policy, they have done the best they can. Even though I'm not a first year, I do think first year exams should have been cancelled. They don't count, so there's no reason why they still have to go ahead. I would say one thing though, when I was actually sitting my exam it was okay, but when I was revising for my exam it was so difficult. Like, being at home, there's so many distractions, there's so much noise, and for me anyway, I never work at home, never do assignments at home. It's just not a place I can work. Never. Even at A-levels I'd work in coffee shops and things, so I think they didn't take into account home environments. Not everyone's home environment is suitable for sitting an exam. For example, young carers, people with disabled siblings, people living with people with COVID-19, people with jobs. Even, I know the minute we got into lockdown I was looking to try and get a job. I applied to be an NHS volunteer. I didn't get any of the jobs, but I could have been working like 12 hours and have to fit an exam in that. And you can say, oh, but you don't have to work, you wouldn't be working anyway, but we're all now paying rent on houses we don't live in. So yeah, I do need to have money from somewhere. It's not coming in. I'm really broke. I think that is tricky, but at the same time they had to pick the best option, I suppose. Another thing is, when you sit exams in uni, you do your exam. Before your exam, you're hanging out with your mates, preparing. After your exam, you walk back with your mates, you have a good time, and it's like a social occasion as much as anything else. Whereas when you're in quarantine sitting an exam, it's, for me anyway, I know in England you're not still stuck in your houses to some extent, but in Wales we're very much still stuck in lockdown as much as we were before. I think a difficult thing is you can't separate your life from exams, because I know for me, all I'm doing last week, in 4 days I did 30 hours of revision in my room. So revision is in your room, sitting the exams is in your room, your life is in your room or in your house, whereas in Durham I revise not in my room, I revise in the library. So it's difficult because you can't go anywhere, you can't get that differentiation. In terms of sitting the actual exam, an online exam is my dream. I hate exam halls. It's top 10 list of hates. I absolutely hate them. They probably cause about 80% of my exam stress. So the fact that I'm sat in my room calm by myself is a dream come true. On normal exam days I can't eat. Normally can't eat the night before. I go to the toilet about 10 million times. I'm just really stressed, and I sit the whole exam being really stressed. Whereas here, sitting it at home, for me personally, is a lot nicer than sitting it in an exam hall. But that's not the case for everybody. Find some way to separate your life. I'm yet to find it. I do have lots of activities going on though. So I have my revision, I read, I work on jigsaws. I did go for walks, but in terms of now that the workload's shot up a bit, I haven't really been able to watch films. I try to do a wide range of things, so my life is not 100% revision and exams and dominated just by that, because I would drive myself crazy if that was the case. My revision method now, last week it was really full on, because I didn't realise, and lots of people didn't realise, the exams were released 48 hours before rather than 48 hours after. So I basically lost 4 days. So it was a mad rush last week. So I would basically just listen to my lectures on encore recordings and just write down the key bits in my notebook. But then this time for my next exam, I have 9 days. So I just have to do 2 lectures a day, which works out about 3 hours. I do speed the lectures up. I put them on 1.5 speed. But I have to pause it a lot with this particular lecturer because he puts a lot of information on the slide and doesn't necessarily say it back. So it does take a bit longer than 2 hours, but not much longer. And I basically write down everything that's important. I'll get you my notes. This is my work from today. So this was where the lecture started, and I normally put at the top the important bits covered in that lecture, but I haven't got around to it yet, but I'll put the keywords at the top, and then I basically just listen to it and get all the important bits of information, and then I take these notes with me into the exam. When I had the exam the other day, I got the question, I flicked through my book, looked at the keywords at the top, looked for the topic I was looking for, and then read that through. I think something that's really helpful with doing this method is last week when I was doing about 5 hours a day, all I could think about was HR, and it was right in my brain. And even if all the information's not there, obviously from writing notes it's not in your long-term memory, but it was in my state of mind. Like, my state of mind last week was very human resources. Every film I watched I could relate to what I was revising. The lecturer's voice was always in my head. I was very much in a human resources mindset, and that's the same now. I'm very much in a global management mindset. Everything I'm doing I'm like, yep, okay. It just gets you in the zone, I think. So even though you're not remembering it, because you don't need to because it's open book, all your notes are here, but even without the notes, just being in that mindset, having that deliverance every day of a little bit of a topic, I think is the most beneficial thing. Not necessarily learning the stuff, but understanding it. You get that from watching the lectures. But then when you go to sit the exam, you don't have to look up anything. You can look in the book and just get a quick definition, and that'll take you back to the lecture and you'll remember it. And then also another thing I did which came in really handy, I had this page which was basically loads of critics and support, loads of different theories that allotted to the topic of diversity management. I just had like quick fire references and things that I could throw in because I've made a list of them all prior, so that I would definitely recommend doing if you're doing an exam that would involve critical analysis or stuff like that. Yeah, that's my tip for revising, and for this next exam it'll only be 2.5 hours a day, so that's really good. I hope that's helped you. I think the main thing to remember is when you're doing an online exam, it's not about remembering it, it's more important to understand it and have the notes down, but understand the theories and the concepts rather than remembering it. So you've got one thing taken off your list. When you do an actual exam, you have to first understand it and then you have to remember that, whereas here it's just about making sure you understand it, because if you don't understand it, the time to sit an exam, you've not got time to research an entire topic or find the lecture that it's in. It's so much better to just have everything in one place and pre-prepared, ready for when you go in, so you don't have to then learn the topics as you do it. That is all my advice and information regarding online exams. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and let me know how you're feeling for your exams or any other topics you want to be involved in Cosy Chit Chat, and I shall see you in the next video, and good luck with your exams. Bye!